Rick, it's so great to see you.
Good morning, Keith. Always happy to see that smiling face of yours.
Thank you. Hey, I just want to do one that's the title is going to be called it's rough in there. Okay.
Okay.
Uh and what that is referring to is how rough it is inside of us. What I found is that when I experienced a lot of suffering in my life, I thought that the problem was outside of me, but it was actually inside. So as tough as I thought it was, and as messed up as I thought the world was, and how uh, terrible things were, I was complaining about every little thing that didn't fit into how I thought life should be, how I thought people should behave, all those things that were going on that I thought were being that were the result of the external world. I would complain about everything on the outside, not being really aware of where the problem was. It was in here. Like as much as I thought there was a mess outside, the bigger mess was inside. And so as a human being, if you're not working on yourself, man, it gets rough in there inside of your psyche, inside of all of this. I remember like little things where, let's say, for example, this happened once in my life. I've rarely been jealous in a relationship before, experienced jealousy. But whenever the instance that I did, it was me thinking that feeling insecure, thinking that my partner may be up to something or whatever else may be, or somebody else has caught their eye. And let's say that that was, legitimately the case. As bad as that was, or I thought it was rougher inside because I was getting no sleep, no peace. I mean, none. Whatever my partner's doing, completely out of my control. But what most people do is they spend their whole lives trying to control their partner. Don't sit next to them. Don't talk to them. You better not do this. You're home 5 minutes late. Where were you? All this other stuff. Like that's on the outside. So as rough as you think the world is outside in your relationships, where the awfulness is really happening inside. That thing inside, when it can't handle situations, it will cause you to lose sleep. You will worry. You will throw away life moments left and right. And I did that all the time, Rick. I was, whether it was politics or whatever else it is, I was like, can you believe this person is supporting this or they have this kind of stance? It was rougher in here. It was hard for me to live with myself. My mind would not shut up. And once I started working on myself, things completely start to change. People still think differently than I do. They still hold different beliefs. There are still different political leanings. I have friends who may not call back. I've dated people who don't give me the love that I think I should be receiving back. All that's happened. I've expressed interest in spending time with them. They're too busy, or they say no, or not now, and all of that's happening. What the old me would try to do is either withdraw or enclose my heart to them, or I would try to control them, manipulate, or play some kind of con game. Man, that thing as a human being, when you're not working on yourself, Rick, it is tough in there. It will make you end a relationship because you don't have yourself together. It will make you leave a job because you don't think they're treating you fairly. And you will just go from one thing to the next. And you don't realize that you're the one that's doing it. So I have so much compassion for human beings who are struggling through life because man, it gets tough in there. It gets tough in there when you're not working on yourself. What are your thoughts, Rick?
Wow, that's a lot, Keith. Well, I think human beings come with a lot of software that sometimes isn't helpful.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the default software that humans run on have to do with blaming ourselves or creating a whole panoply, a whole list of things to be negative about. So,
Yes.
my experience through my life has been that I know that I'm my worst enemy, and so
Yes.
that helps me because it will force me to monitor and identify negative thinking. And there's a lot of different negative thinking that I go through, and I think this is probably common to many people. But one of the big ones that was hard for me to get through, and I still have trouble with it. In fact, all of these negative thinking things still occur, but at least I'm mindful of them. But when you identify them, you can change them. So For example, one of my main, I guess, bad points I'm trying to correct is the idea of personalizing things. So
Yeah.
when something bad occurs, I automatically blame myself. So, if I hear that, let's say I'm supposed to go out with a bunch of buddies, and the thing is canceled, I might assume that the change in plans is because no one wanted to be around me. You know,
Right, right.
okay, so that's one example of negative thinking that makes it rough inside of my head. Another one is this is daily. I have to fight this daily. I call it catastrophizing, the idea that I automatically anticipate the worst thing that could possibly happen without facts. I'm just creating this narrative about a certain situation, and you could look at many alternatives, but what I do is I might flash through all those alternatives, but I'll settle on the worst. And that's the one that I think is going to happen. So, give you a goofy example, but let's say I'm going to Starbucks and I go through the drive-through coffee shop and they get my order wrong. And now I'm out of time. And so I can't get the order correct. So I have to zoom away. And then I start blaming the barista. I blame myself for having not had enough time. And now I'm not going to have coffee. I won't be awake. I hate my life. I mean, it's a silly example, but I think everybody does both personalizing and catastrophizing. And those two things for me are negative thinking that makes it very rough inside. But I think the way out is to monitor it and just realize, hey, this is kind of a human thing. And it's not you. Everybody does this to some degree or another. Let's just get back on track. Let's get thinking of the way that we want to think. Let's get rid of this negative self-talk. Nothing good comes from being down on yourself. Nothing good comes from talking to yourself in a negative way that you wouldn't talk, say, to your mom or to your husband or wife or your kids. You talk to yourself in a brutal way. So if we can monitor what we're going through, monitoring our self-talk, try to save it, change it, and then try to save that space that's created by eliminating the self-talk into doing optimistic thinking that, hey, this is a challenge. I've done challenges before. I know how to get through them. I'll be okay. That sort of thing. Anyway, those two things for me make it rough inside my head, personalizing and catastrophizing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Rick. I do self-monitoring all the time, and I just keep remembering there are no external enemies. The problems are inside, they're not out there. Just really helps. And like you said, it could be small things. I had a client who was very personable in their communications and texts. And right off the bat, and then most recently, like in the last week, instead of like replying with or sending texts that are, have a few sentences to it, there's like a thumbs up or something like that. And there's no, instead of saying hi Keith, it just says hi or okay, which is very different. And so what little Keith started to do was to read into that. Like that's what I mean. It's rough in there. like, like that thing will, it doesn't matter what it is, big or small, man. It's rough in there. That thing will cause you to lose sleep. Next thing you know, you're going down this rabbit hole. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something to them? Did somebody say something negative about me? Well, all of which is out of your control. And then you're just like, man, what am I doing? And so when I see people do this, it's rough in there. One of the things that people that when I work with staff over at Mayo and they bring me in with teams, a common situation is that people are not assuming positive intent from their colleagues. That they are there's always conflict about what they didn't do and how they should have done it, or they didn't say this, or they didn't ask me. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, man, it's rough in there for that person who's thinking about this every day. They come to work, they're thinking about this. They are commenting on every little thing that happens. There's no peace inside, man. So I just have so much compassion for them, worried about what their spouse is doing and not doing, and how they're running their business or not running their business. I'm like, it's not the spouse. It's not the spouse. It's not your colleague. Dude, you're doing this to you. And until you bring that awareness to it, that I'm the one doing that. The problem isn't out there. And then you just start to work on it. But like you said, the first step, Rick, is that awareness. So, Rick, thank you for a great show, man. I'm going to continue to give myself grace when it gets rough in here. I'm working on myself every day so that those days are few and far between. And I'm especially going to give other people grace and understanding. Rick, I love you.
I love you, man. We're all so flawed. Love is all we got.
That's it, Rick. Thank you.